Welcome to Redacted Tonight. This is the show where Americans in America covering American news are called foreign agents. Recently, writer Caitlin Johnstone penned a column about the differences between horrible totalitarian states and lovely free democracies like we have here in the U.S. So let's take a moment to go through some of those differences and expand on her points, because it's important we all understand the difference between good guys like the United States and bad guys like most other countries. In totalitarian regimes, they have massacres and wars. In free democracies, they have humanitarian interventions. It sounds so lovely, doesn't it? Humanitarian intervention. Like we did in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and Yemen, and like we want to do in Iran and Venezuela and China and North Korea. Don't be upset. We just want to intervene in your humanity. It will only take a minute, and we'll use lube. In totalitarian regimes, they use torture. In free democracies, they use enhanced interrogation techniques. Yes, it's just enhanced interrogation. Enhanced with what? Torture, mainly. Yeah, we just sprinkle a little torture on there, just a taste. Kind of like how I once sold my king-size mattress to someone, but to make it sound a little better, I called it an enhanced bedtime device. I didn't tell them it was enhanced with bed bugs, but I didn't lie to them. In totalitarian regimes, they fund terrorist groups to create instability. In free democracies, they fund terrorist groups to create stability. Yes, all of the terrorists we fund help make things better. It is now well known that the U.S. funded and supported Osama bin Laden and the Mujahideen, which became Al-Qaeda. Even after 2001, the U.S. government has funded and at times allied with Al-Qaeda and their offshoots. In fact, right now, just last month, a PBS Frontline special was the latest vehicle in a PR campaign to legitimize rebranded Syrian Al-Qaeda, HTS, and market its leader, Mohammed Jalani, as a competent American asset. That's right. The founder of Al-Qaeda's branch in Syria is now our friend. Did we say he was a bad guy? No, not a bad guy. We just needed to get to know him more. Turns out the beheading people in the streets was a misunderstanding. He was actually helping them. You see, they had an infection of the body, and he removed it, like the body. It had gone bad, and so he helped them get rid of it. And that's why we like him. He's our friend. In totalitarian regimes, evil dictators bomb their own people. In free democracies, we bomb our own people. We love bombing our own people. The U.S. government or U.S. police have dropped bombs on Americans in the mine wars in West Virginia in the early 1900s, but much more recently in the move bombing in Philadelphia in 1985. The police dropped bombs on our own citizens and then burnt down an entire city block, killing 11 people. There's also the fact that Obama proudly drone-bombed American citizens overseas, including 16-year-old Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, who had never even been accused of a crime. I mean, can we at least accuse him of something? Make something up. Just go, I can't believe you didn't water my plants when you promised to. For betraying me and my plants, I'm going to drone bomb you. Accuse him of something. In totalitarian regimes, a single party upholds and enforces the status quo. In free democracies, two parties uphold and enforce the status quo. So you see how different that is. Rather than having Donald Trump perpetrating horrific human rights abuses in our names, overseeing the largest prison state in the world, overseeing a racist police system, supporting a healthcare system that exploits, harms, and maims people who aren't the rich because they can't afford healthcare, and furthering endless environmental destruction. Instead of all that, now we have Joe Biden doing those things. This gives us something very important. It's called The illusion of choice. Yes, we get to pretend we made a choice, and that makes everything feel so much better. It's kind of like when a toddler is about to get a needle stuck in his arm, like to draw blood or something, and the nurse lets him choose between the Band-Aid with the dinosaurs on it and the Band-Aid with the cars on it. You notice which choice is not on the table? The choice to not have a metal stick shoved in his arm. So the kid gets to choose the color of the Band-Aid, and he therefore feels like he chose to have the needle stuck in his arm. It's exactly the same with our political parties. We get to choose either the dinosaur, Joe Biden, or the gas-guzzling car, Donald Trump. And then we think everything our country does is our choice. But it's not. Because you know what option was never on the table? To stop all of this shit! But don't complain. You chose this. In totalitarian regimes, the government controls the press and determines what information the public is allowed to have access to. In free democracies, it is billionaires who do this. 80 to 90% of the mainstream airwaves in the US are owned by just a few massive corporations. Those corporations are headed by a handful of billionaires, and they decide what you're allowed to know. See how much freer that is? But Jeff Bezos loves you. He'll take care of you. In totalitarian regimes, they wage brutally violent crackdowns on protesters to quash dissent. In free democracies, they do this also, but then the politicians kneel while wearing kente cloth. Yes, in free democracies, they don't crush dissent, except at Standing Rock and Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter and logging fights and Fight for 15, and Jill Stein was fucking kidnapped by police when she tried to attend a presidential debate. They crack down on dissent constantly, in every city, every year, going back to the founding of this country. But when Jill Stein was chained to that chair, they gave her the freedom to sing God Bless America. So, there's that. In totalitarian regimes, you know exactly who rules over you. In free democracies, the true rulers hide behind fake puppet governments. In most ways that matter, the true rulers of the United States are the CEOs of the big tech companies and the big weapons contractors and the big ag companies, the big pharma, big prisons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They are the ones really calling the shots when push comes to shove, and Joe Biden is a dancing puppet to put out front. Well, okay, he can't dance anymore. He might fall down, dislocate his hip, and piss himself. But puppet nonetheless. A smelly puppet. In totalitarian regimes, any elections they have are rigged, and challengers are handpicked by the authoritarian rulers. In free democracies, the rulers rig the elections and handpick the candidates. And they do this to other countries as well. Don't forget, the DNC's own lawyers said in court that the Democratic Party has the right to pick their nominee in a smoke-filled room behind closed doors, effectively rigging their own primary election. And of course, even beyond that, the system is essentially rigged by money. Don't have millions of dollars? Then you're not going to Congress. And who do you have to reach out to in order to get that money to run? The rich, the rulers of the society. If your beliefs don't fit with their beliefs, then no money for you. It's like the soup Nazi, but with money. Still Nazis, though. In totalitarian regimes, you are forced to obey. In free democracies, you are trained to think your obedience was your own idea. See? That's so much freer. It was my idea to get into this career I hated, some miserable office or serving appetizers to assholes at TGI Fridays. It was my idea to stay in it because otherwise I couldn't afford health insurance or my kids' college tuition or to take care of my elderly mom. And it was my idea to spend 75% of my waking hours within the confines of my house because then I don't have to worry about police approaching me. My idea to imprison myself in these 3 rooms for most of my life. You see, I'm free in these 3 rooms or something. In totalitarian regimes, they imprison or kill journalists for revealing inconvenient truths about the powerful. Julian J. Assange, eh? Michael May Hastings, hey? Sometimes they don't bother imprisoning or killing them. They just purge them from the mainstream outlets, like Chris Hedges and Noam Chomsky. But that's all I can think of, right? Phil Donahue, Ed Schultz, Jesse Ventura, but I can't think of any more. Mark Lamont Hill, Seymour Hersh, Glenn Greenwald, but that is Melissa Harris Perry, Lee Camp. Well, I don't know about that. I really don't belong on that list. In totalitarian regimes, they encircle the planet with military bases, wage endless wars which kill millions, and work to destroy any nation which disobeys their government. Whoops, sorry, that's actually free democracies. Well, let's be honest. It's really just one democracy that encircles the globe. The United States of America, which isn't free and isn't a democracy. In totalitarian regimes, the citizenry are kept impoverished while the rulers live lavishly with more than they could ever spend. But in free democracies, it's completely different. The rulers they're barely scraping by. Joe Biden had to take an Amtrak train every day of his political career just so he could afford to go visit his shell companies in Delaware. And Donald Trump had to hitch a ride on the presidential helicopter just so he could make it to his personal helicopter so he could go out on his yacht, which he hardly got to spend time with. He has been forced to be an absentee father to his yacht. It really hurts. It really hurts. Really hurts. In totalitarian regimes, bands of armed thugs patrol the streets to enforce obedience to authority. But here in the U.S., we don't. They're not. I mean, we don't have armed thugs. Okay. They are thugs, but they don't enforce obedience unless you're, loitering or something, or you have a little bit of plant wrapped up in a piece of paper, or you don't make a full stop at a stop sign, or you are black. But other than that, they don't enforce. And moving on. In totalitarian regimes, the powerful determine what happens, regardless of the desire of the people. For example, a large Princeton study found that no matter what the people in totalitarian states want, it only happens if it agrees with what the rulers wanted anyway. The people have essentially no influence. Sorry, that study was about the United States. My bad. I thought that was us again. In totalitarian regimes, you are not free, and you know it. In free democracies, you are not free, and you don't know it. See, right now, you're thinking to yourself, I am free. Oh, yeah? Go outside pantsless, drinking a beer. See how long that lasts. But put some lawn chairs and a baby pool in an empty parking spot downtown. Just have a little hangout, little barbecue there. See how many minutes go by before you're told to move along by a cop. I thought you were free. What happened to free? Free means do what you want, doesn't it? Well, I'm free as long as I move along. Free to move along. Go into a store and set up a tent there and see how long before they call the police. Yeah, but that's private property. That doesn't count. Half of any fucking city's private property now. You can't go anywhere now because someone owns everything. Okay, then, set up a tent in a public park. See how long you can do that. Sir, you can't be here. It's a public park. Well, exactly. Aren't I the public? It's public use for everyone. You can't stay here. You got to move along. So you can only use the public spaces the way precisely they want you to use them. You can only use the private spaces the way they want you to use them. Where the fuck can I just be a strange human who isn't going by some stupid rules? You can only do that in your house alone in the dark. What a free society! Woo-hoo-hoo! As you can see, we here in the United States actually do live in a totalitarian state. In fact, it's what political theorist Sheldon Wolin termed inverted totalitarianism, which does not find its expression in a demagogue or charismatic leader, but in the faceless anonymity of the corporate state. Once we get past the denial part of the equation, we can actually start to fight against it. And I feel like it's happening. Do you feel it? I feel it. I totally feel it. Coming from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast. This is Redacted Tonight.